You are standing in your kitchen at 2 in the morning, bathed in the sterile, pale glow of a microwave oven. You are staring at a spinning glass plate, watching a digital screen count down from 60 seconds. You are impatient. You tap your foot, sigh heavily, and cross your arms because a single minute feels like an eternity to wait for a lukewarm slice of leftover pizza. Now, I want you to erase the microwave. Erase the kitchen. Erase the walls, the hum of the refrigerator, the power grid, and the sleeping city outside. Erase the last 2 million years of human comfort. You are no longer waiting for a midnight snack. You are the snack. When did this change? At what precise moment in the chaotic, blood-soaked theater of evolution did one peculiar species of weak, bald ape decide to steal the sun? And more importantly, why are we the only creatures on this miserable rock arrogant enough to actually do it? The answer is not hidden in the majestic, sweeping ashes of a prehistoric volcano or a beautifully preserved cave painting. The answer is hiding somewhere much stranger, much more intimate, and incredibly bizarre. It is hiding inside the microscopic anatomy of your own jawbone. Let us rewind the clock to the precondition. Imagine the world before the flame. Picture the African savanna, perhaps 2 million years ago. The air is thick, the sun dips below the horizon, and the world fundamentally changes ownership. The daylight belongs to the foragers, the scavengers, to you. But the night? The night belongs to the monsters. You are an early hominid. You do not possess venom. You do not have thick armored scales. You do not have the sprinting speed of a cheetah or the bone-crushing bite of a prehistoric hyena. Your primary evolutionary defense mechanism is hiding in a tree and desperately hoping you remain entirely invisible. Before fire, human life was dictated by a brutal, uncompromising biological curfew. When the sun went down, your world ended. You were trapped in a state of sensory deprivation, shivering in the cold, listening to the agonizingly close rustle of tall grass, waiting to die. Furthermore, your diet was an endless, exhausting chore. You spent up to 8 hours a day just chewing. You chewed tough, fibrous roots and raw meat scavenged from the scraps left behind by real apex predators. Your digestive system was a massive, energy-draining factory trying to break down complex carbohydrates. You were weak. You were perpetually exhausted. You were an evolutionary underdog barely clinging to the margins of the food chain. So, how do we prove exactly when this cosmic shift occurred? If you are a conventional thinker, you might assume we just look for the oldest campfire. You look for neat rings of stones and piles of soot. But geology is a cruel, careless archivist. Ash blows away in the wind. Rain washes away charcoal. The earth constantly breathes, shifts, and erases its own memories. The true evidence of our pyromaniacal origins is far more eccentric. Archaeologists found it in a place called Wonderwork Cave in the northern Cape of South Africa. Here, 1 million years deep into the dirt, they did not find a picturesque prehistoric hearth. They found microscopic fragments of calcined bone and plant ash, undisturbed, deep inside a cave where natural lightning could not possibly reach. Yet, the most damning evidence is not found in the dirt at all. It is staring right back at you in the mirror. Look at your face. Look at your flat snout, your incredibly weak jaw muscles, and your crowded teeth. Look at your completely useless wisdom teeth painfully trying to breach your gums. Why is your mouth so pathetically small? Because approximately 1.9 million years ago, Homo erectus outsourced digestion to the environment. They used fire as an external stomach. By cooking food, they broke down the cellular walls of plants and the tough fibers of meat before it even entered their bodies. Evolution looked at this brilliant cheat code and made a ruthless calculation. It traded our massive, ape-like digestive tracts for something far more calorically expensive: a massive brain. The evolutionary smoking gun of the first fire is the undeniable fact that you are physically incapable of surviving on the raw diet of your ancestors. You are biologically addicted to cooked food. Now, here is where the historical narrative usually gets incredibly lazy. The standard textbook story tells you that early humans were cold, so they invented fire to stay warm. It sounds perfectly logical. It is also entirely wrong. If you merely want to stay warm, evolution has a much simpler, highly effective solution. It is called fur. Woolly mammoths did not need campfires to survive the frost. Snow leopards do not huddle around a hearth. Biology can adapt to sub-zero temperatures with thick fat and dense hair. So why did we choose the flame? It was never just about thermal regulation. It was about bending the fabric of time and rewiring the hierarchy of power. Fire created something that did not exist in the natural order, the concept of evening. It artificially extended the day, creating a radiant safe zone of light where predators dared not enter. But more profoundly, it changed what happened inside that circle of light. Fire is a hypnotic anchor. When you sit around a crackling flame, your focus is naturally drawn to the faces illuminated across from you. This is the birthplace of human culture. This was the primordial laboratory for language, for gossip, for myth-making. Fire forced us into intimate social proximity. It transformed us from a loose pack of paranoid, shivering foragers into a cohesive tribe bound by shared stories and collective imagination. The flame was not just a prehistoric heater. It was our very first social network. It was a psychological weapon deployed against the existential terror of the absolute dark. Capturing a naturally occurring fire from a random lightning strike is one thing. Opportunism is remarkably common in the animal kingdom. In Australia, the firehawk raptors are known to pick up smoldering twigs from active wildfires and deliberately drop them in unburned areas to flush out fleeing prey. Animals can use fire, but animals cannot create it. The true cognitive breakthrough, the terrifying leap from clever beast to technological god, was the invention of friction fire. Imagine the profound leap of imagination required for this moment. To look at a dead branch, a piece of inert, cold wood, and realize that locked intimately inside its physical structure is the dormant power of a star. To understand that kinetic energy, the simple, exhausting act of rubbing two sticks together or striking iron pyrite against flint, could summon a demon of heat and light from thin air. This was the birth of physics. It required an unprecedented understanding of causality, of patience, of invisible forces. When that first spark finally caught the dry tinder, when the delicate wisp of smoke curled into the air and a gentle human breath coaxed it into a roaring flame, a fundamental law of the universe was violently overturned. We were no longer just passive subjects of nature. We became its engineers. We held the raw, destructive power of the cosmos in our fragile, blistered hands. This new, volatile god we conjured would soon be the only thing standing between humanity and total annihilation. The Earth is a hostile, unforgiving host. As the Pleistocene marched on, the global climate plunged into absolute chaos. The Ice Age descended. Massive, crushing glaciers crawled across Europe and Asia, locking the world in a brutal, freezing grip. Entire species of magnificent megafauna were wiped from the face of the planet, buried under miles of ice. For any normal tropical ape, this severe climatic shift should have been the end of the line. Migration into the frozen northern latitudes should have been an act of biological suicide. But we possessed a weapon. Fire became our portable climate. Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens pushed relentlessly into the frozen wastelands of the north, conquering vast continents they had absolutely no biological right to inhabit. The campfire became an impenetrable fortress. It allowed us to thaw frozen carcasses, to harden wooden spears for hunting mammoths, to survive agonizing winters that literally shattered solid stone. It was the ultimate evolutionary crucible. The ice sought to erase us, and the fire roared back in sheer defiance. We did not just survive the apocalyptic freeze. We used it as an anvil to forge a more lethal, more adaptable, more terrifying version of humanity. And the truth is, we never stopped feeding that flame. The epic transition from those shivering cavemen to the modern apex predator was simply a matter of scaling up the combustion. We seamlessly moved from burning wood to burning coal, unlocking millions of years of ancient, fossilized sunlight buried deep underground. That coal-powered massive steam engines, effectively shrinking the globe. We pumped oceans of liquid oil from the dark veins of the earth, setting it on fire inside internal combustion engines to propel ourselves faster than the speed of sound. We even looked into the quantum realm and learned to split the atom, creating horrifying nuclear fires that mimic the very heart of the sun itself. Look around at the modern world. The towering skyline of New York, the sprawling, mechanized factories of Shenzhen, the deafening, roaring engines of a rocket tearing through the upper atmosphere. It is all just a sophisticated variation of that very first campfire. Every plastic bottle you drink from, every steel skyscraper you walk into, every glowing smartphone screen you stare at exists solely because we learned how to extract, control, and relentlessly consume heat. The Industrial Revolution was not a departure from our primitive roots. It was the ultimate, terrifying manifestation of them. We are still just bald, anxious apes, huddled around a remarkably complex, incredibly dangerous global hearth, feeding it absolutely everything we can dig out of the dirt just to keep the dark away. The mastery of fire was never just about a single, isolated advantage. It was not merely about cooking meat or staying warm or scaring off a saber-toothed cat in the dead of night. It was a chaotic, beautiful, and violent collision of biology, culture, and environmental pressure. It irreversibly altered our DNA, it shrank our stomachs, it exploded the size of our brains, and it hardwired our minds for the art of storytelling. It is the defining, immutable boundary line between human and animal. Pull yourself back to the present moment. Look at the device you are reading this on right now. Feel the subtle, quiet warmth radiating from its battery into your palm. Stare at the artificial light pouring from the glass screen directly into your retinas. You are actively participating in an unbroken chain of chemical reactions that stretches back 2 million years. That light, that heat, that highly engineered technology is the direct, bloodline descendant of a fragile spark struck in the absolute darkness of an ancient African savanna. You are still tending the ancestral flame. So, let me leave you with this. If modern society miraculously collapsed tomorrow and you found yourself stranded in the pitch-black, terrifying wilderness of a brand new prehistoric age, what 3 modern items would you bring to keep the dark at bay? Tell me your ultimate survival loadout in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.